All right, today we are riding a 2024 ZX10R 24th anniversary edition. And I couldn't be more excited. Alright, let's head out for a little cruise. Excuse me. We'll head out for a little cruise. I'll pull over at a little park up here and we'll talk about the bike. This bike has a 32.9-inch seat height. Now, I'm 6'2", 220 pounds, give or take a few. And of course I could flat foot this, no problem. I haven't found a motorcycle yet. I haven't been able to flat foot, but I had a friend who is 5'8", and he could not flat foot it, but he could definitely ride it. This bike is at 197 miles, so we are still following the break-in procedure, so not above 6,000 RPM. Even keeping it to 6,000 RPM, this bike can still do just about 80 miles an hour. So if you have to follow in a break-in period, this is an alright bike to do a break-in period on, because you can still get on the freeway and not worrying about being too slow for traffic, right? Now, this bike is 456.4 pounds. So in the liter class, it's a little bit of a chunky monkey. Not terribly so. I mean, the BMW S1000RR is one of the lighter bikes. That's probably 12 to 15 pounds lighter than this. And the Aprilia RSV4 is a few pounds heavier. So, you know, they all vary a little bit. I'm gonna shy away from saying this bike's good for a tall rider, this bike's good for a short rider, and the reason being is since I've been doing test rides, I've noticed that quite often they're incorrect. I watch all the videos and I read all the articles, and I was told that the Aprilia RSV4 is only for the shortest of guys. And I almost didn't even want to get on it. I wasn't looking forward to my test ride a couple weeks ago. And I fit on that bike perfectly at 6'2". So yeah, don't take everything you read as the gospel truth. You gotta sit on these things yourself, try them out, and even when it comes to height, you know, you might have long legs and a short torso, or a short torso and long legs. So yeah, you gotta sit on them yourself, even if you can't test ride them. So no, not everybody could go and test ride a leader bike. The dealers are a little touchy about it. You gotta have a lot of experience. You gotta be insured for so long, or they don't want everybody taking them out, which I understand. You could have, especially if you're young, you might have a hard time getting a test ride. But if you could at least sit on them, you could get a general idea. Now, while we're talking about that, one thing I want to say is when you're making a decision on like a $20-some thousand motorcycle, like one of the leader class bikes, they're all going to be similar in the seating position and the pegs and the reach to the bars, the rider triangle. They're all going to be similar. They're all going to be a little bit different. But if you're planning on buying it and doing absolutely nothing, and you're going to leave it stock, then you're going to buy it, and you're going to buy the one that fits you perfectly or the closest to it. But for all the rest of us, which I think is the majority of people buying bikes, you're going to modify it. So if the pegs are up a little bit too high, you don't say, oh, I'm going to buy a whole different bike, because you'll probably get rear sets. If you don't like to reach to the bars, you might get different clip-ons. So you're not going to make a $20,000 decision or a $30,000 or $40,000 decision based over 3 millimeters. Those are all things you could change. You basically pick the bike you think is best for you, and change the things you can to make it just right for you. So we're going to take a 2-second break, and then we're going to take a walk around this and talk about it a little more. Alright, let's take a little walk around, take a look at her. She is a fine looking bike in this lime green paint. It doesn't show up as well on videos. This is a fluorescent green, and it's a little overcast today. And then I believe it's called crystal white and blue, just blue. Up front we got turn signals with the integrated signals. I actually think these mirrors are alright. I mean, some bikes, that's the first thing I want to change. This is alright. I wouldn't change these out immediately. We got here 998cc inline 4. Up front we got 330 mil monoblock dual Brembo brakes. We got some of the best Showa suspension of all of the leader bikes. This bike is grit suspension. At back we got a much smaller 220 millimeter disc and this giant monster of an exhaust. What else do we need to look at? Hey, we could thank England for these big pieces of plastic fenders up here. They're on bikes because in England the license plate has to come to the rear of the tire, and since they make these bikes for the whole world, they put them on every bike. So I think we should gather them all up and send them to England. Send them to Parliament, the House of Parliament. Said this bike has really high foot pegs. Even amongst the other bikes in the class, it's a little bit high. That's something you could change out with a set of rear sets You know, we have a nice looking front end on this bike, I think. It's a little mean looking. It's got lightweight LED headlights. Save an ounce or two here or there. That's the idea, right? With the big scoop. Big air scoop in the front. We have integrated winglets over here. So no dinner dish plates. I like that. I do. Some people like the winglets. I like the built-in ones a little bit better. You know, when you're buying a bike, at least for me anyway, it's engine, you know, suspension and handling first, and then everything else. I decide if those first things are good enough, I'll deal with the rest. We got a little aerodynamic cutouts right here. On the R1, those are really pronounced, and it looks nice, I think. The ZX10 comes with its own tank pad. It's a hard plastic resin. It's 3D, and I really like that idea because you're going to be spending a lot of time on the tank. It's a 4.5 gallon tank, by the way, with no gas gauge. Yes, no gas gauge, I said. And we have an electronic Olin steering dampener. Right here we have a GPS preview remote. I got that to go with my Insta360 Ace Pro, which I'm recording this with. I'm going to put a link in the description if you want to get yourself a camera. They are the best cameras on the market. I'm not a salesman, but the thing's incredible, and I love this because you always know when you're recording. You could change your camera settings from there. Very cool. It's a game changer. Plus it records your stats. It shows you your GPS speed, it records routes, it records elevation changes. Super cool. That's about it for right now. There's a little bit more I'm going to talk about, and we're going to do it on a ride, so hold on. So we didn't talk about the elephant in the room, right? The 40th anniversary colorway, the throwback to the 90s, and it screams the 90s, doesn't it? I think it's incredible. I thought the 1990 ZX7 was one of the best looking bikes ever, and I always wanted one. I think this is awesome that they're doing it, bringing back the 1990s for sure, huh? You like it? Now the deal with these 40th anniversary editions are they're not limited edition, they're not numbered, but talking to the dealers, everyone I talked to so far is getting one. Now I'm sure there are giant dealers somewhere that sell 1 million bikes who will get more than one, but every dealer I talked to in southeast Pennsylvania was getting just one bike. And the salesman, when they were being candid, said, hey, keeps the price of them up, and it keeps them from having leftovers. So yeah, if you want to get one, I would say go ahead and try and put your money down on one now, before they start charging more for them. You know, supply and demand, right? Now you're gonna pay a little bit more now because they're about 21,100, 21,190. I think that's the price. You're gonna pay a little bit more now, but in the next year or two, if I'm correct, I've watched other bikes do this. The R1 with their 60th anniversary, was it? Those bikes usually sell for about $1,000 more. And for a year or two, they even go up in value. Thing is, if you keep them longer, 5 years from now maybe, there's going to be somebody who wanted this now but couldn't afford it. There's going to be somebody who just loves this colorway and will go out of their way to try and find one. So you pay a little more now, but you basically get the same money back in the future. Now, if you were wondering what this little red cord is, I put that on there, and that's for heated gear. That doesn't come on the bike. That doesn't come on the bike, and the GPS preview remote does not come on the bike. The rest of the bike is stock. Take a look and see if that camera's recording, huh? Doesn't look it, does it? There we go. So it's at 200 degrees, around 200 degrees, and the fan came on. So like all these bikes, they run a little hot. We'll talk about a little bit about how she handles. I'm not going to go over all of the electronic controls, but I will make a separate video about that. Yeah, that just takes a little bit of time to get into all that. And I'll just do a whole separate video on the controls. I said over here on the left, we got your cruise control. And up here, when we got a little time, I'll pop it on for you. These winter roads in Pennsylvania are treacherous. They're very dirty. You gotta be careful. So it's kind of alright. This is in the break-in period, right? You want to take it a little easy right now anyway. So, of course, like all top of the line bikes, leader bikes, this one has a quick shifter up and down, you know, quick shifter and auto blipper. It's got Kawasaki corner management control, Kawasaki traction control, KIBS, Kawasaki integrated braking system. It's a smart ABS that realizes the amount of pressure you're putting on the brakes, and it does a lot of thinking for you, basically, right? Bike has launch control. You put the launch control on and you could set it to what RPMs you want it, and then you pin the throttle and it'll only let the bike rev up to that number, like say 8,000, and then you slowly let out the clutch, or faster. You let the clutch out as much as you can without trying to wheelie. Whoop. What else would you like to know about the old ZX10? ZX10R, what would you like to know about it? I'll show you the cruise control here. As soon as this truck gets out of my way. There's a button here that has like a little clock on it. You press that button and a little clock comes up on the top of the LCD, and then you hit send, which is right here. Hold that down, and it says set right there. You got your ABS. Now you could go up and down with the arrows right here to set it for higher or lower. You turn it off by hitting the brakes or pressing the button again. Super nice feature on a sport bike, because we all know how much these things beat up on your back, right? She handles like a dream. You know, these bikes were made to go fast and to handle well, and to handle well while going fast, and she does it. I don't think there's any of the leader bikes you're gonna get where you're not gonna be overly impressed by the power and the handling. You know, and these guys, they update a model and they do small tweaks and changes, and they keep it for so many years. The ZX-10R was the last of the Japanese bikes that got updated. I believe it was in 19, jeez, I believe it was in 21 or 22. I'm sorry. I normally know that. I would know that any other time. So anyway, it was the last updated of the Japanese leader bikes, and it's been very popular lately, and you know, rightfully so. It's a great bike. I could spend a lot of time doing this. I mean, I love these kind of bikes, and I'm enjoying myself immensely. Trying not to rev it too much here. And I think of the Japanese leader bikes, this is one of the best. This is one of the best ones to ride on the street. Now it's got 205 horsepower, approximately. I've heard 203, 204, 205, and then they say there's 10 horsepower is gained for ram air. So I guess they're saying that there's lots of air coming in through the air box. You get it. I don't know. I don't know if that's advertising fluff, or I don't believe I'm a good enough mechanic to explain it. I'm not a good mechanic at all. One of the reasons I love Japanese bikes. I like all bikes though. I mean, so yeah, brakes are phenomenal. I'm telling you, this bike only comes with ABS. The 40th anniversary model only comes with ABS. There's one or two other things I wanted to bring up to you. It's got a shift light up here, and you could also adjust the engine braking. But other than that, it does not have a mountain of adjustability. You know, some bikes you could spend 3 hours changing every little feature. This one has 7 riding modes. The preset factory ones are rain. The rain mode is 60% power and full traction control. Then there's road, which is, I believe, is full power and medium traction control. And I think people I've talked to, they all prefer the road setting. That's their favorite throttle response, because it changes the throttle response when you change modes. And then there's sport, which is the most, I guess you would say, the most crisp throttle response with the lowest amount of traction control. I enjoy the sport mode the best, and I just like that type of throttle response. Some people find it too touchy, and maybe because I've always enjoyed, I like riding bikes with and without electronics. So maybe it's because I was used to the older bikes. I'm okay with the touchy throttle. Whatever, right? You'll find which one you like the best, and you'll stick with it, or you'll go back and forth, and you know, that's why they're selectable. You change it for what you're doing that day. I know on my Z900, if the weather is a little iffy, I'll put it on road mode. I never really use the rain mode, but it's there, you know. If you get stuck out in the rain, you turn that on, you got all the traction control and less power, so you don't accidentally spin the back tire. Other than those 3 modes, you got 4 modes that you could set up however you like. On my other bike, I set 1 mode up with full power and 0 traction control. What I'm saying is, the electronics are a little bit simpler on this, and that's cool. You have a little bit of adjustability with those four modes that you could change, and other than that, you could probably go with the road, sport, and rain and be just fine. So it's up to you. They give you the option. It does not have self-canceling turn signals, and I'm a maniac for not turning off my signals. So that is about it for this review. There are going to be a lot more bikes coming, and I now own this bike. I bought this one, and in the review I was just being straight and fair. You know, I wasn't totally biased, because I obviously like this. You know, if I went and purchased it on my own. So if you want to hear why I picked this, I'll go on for another minute or two. I am mainly going to be riding on the street for the foreseeable future. I don't see any track time coming. I may in the future, though. We don't know what the next year or two is going to hold, so we'll see. I've just gotten over kind of a long-time illness, and hopefully it stays in my past. So yeah, I was trying to decide which one I wanted. I wanted a leader bike for sure, and I had my mind made up, especially after being so sick for so long. I decided I wanted to get kind of the ultimate bike, and I consider this the ultimate bike. You know, this is the leader class of sport bikes are insane now, with the electronics and the power and the handling. And I always figured I would get one, and I always just pushed it off. You know, later I'll do it, because they're very expensive, and they're totally unnecessary. You don't need this much power. You don't need everything that comes with this bike, and to justify the expense, you know, I always said, you know, one day I'll get one of these bikes. I have a Z900, and I'm keeping that also. And if you would have asked me a couple years ago which leader bike would I get, I would say whichever one's the best at that time when I'm ready to buy. I'm not a Kawasaki or Dai guy. For years, Yamaha was the leader in the Japanese segment, and Suzuki in their GSXR at its time period when it was the best. Kawasaki wasn't always at the forefront of the leader bike scene. Well, that's how it seemed to me. They never seemed like they were on top. I think right now they are in the Japanese bikes. So it just turns out that this year and this time, when I'm ready to buy a leader bike, is the time when the Japanese bike is the best. And they're all very close. They're all very close. And so what I thought was, this bike's a little bit tight. I fit on the Aprilia the best, and I like the Aprilia's engine the best. So I was really going back and forth between getting the Aprilia or getting this bike. I liked how I fit on the Yamaha, the R1. I fit really well on the R1, but the R1 hasn't been updated in so long, and it's a teeny bit behind all the other bikes in the class. If I really loved it, I would have been alright with that bike. And you know, like I said, all this stuff is so very close that so very close that you can get what you like, modified a little bit, and have the right bike for you. Now, I just happen to love this color scheme, and I thought this was one of the best the Japanese leader bikes right now. And I was a little bit afraid of Aprilia. It's just that I'm a terrible mechanic, and I know they're not as bad as people say. I've talked to the dealer a whole lot, and I talked to the mechanics, and they're not that bad. But it's also a teeny bit more than I could have afforded right now. It would have cost me more than I could afford, and I'm getting the Japanese reliability with the looks that I love. So that's it. Alright, there's gonna be lots more videos on this bike to come. I'm gonna show you everything I do as I mod it out. Later.